All right, this isn't fake news. We are actually live on air, so don't fret. Do not report us. Follow through to the conversation all the way to the end. This is KUTV Kenya Biashara Tuesday. Tag me at Richard_Kenya. I'll be looking at that feedback as we go on. Actually, let me just give a shout out to a few people who are tuning in to the show as of this moment. So far, I have Harry K tuning in from Mirema. Hey, mulifungiwa Paris, so I'm sure you're having a very peaceful night in the areas of Mirema. Couple of clubs shut down there, so we can go on with our sleeping and residential business. But thank you for tuning in. Say hi to the people of Mirema, Harry K. I also see Dulo. Dulo Attires is actually the one who gave me this amazing suit that I have on today. So you can check him out on social platform, Dulo Attires. He does very amazing work, bespoke suits tailored to fit. I mean, yeah, I don't have more to say. If you can see it, believe it. All right, here also I see tuning into the show is Fabian, watching from the CBD in Kimathi House. Say hi to the people of Kimathi House. I saw another comment from our YouTube. This is Tunu TV official, just tuned in from Canada. The show is 5 fire emojis. Tuned in from Canada, and the show is 5 fire emojis. Thank you very much for tuning in. Follow through and let us know what you think of the conversations that we're having here. Just about now, we are going to get into the depth of getting to understand what fake news is, spreading of misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and all of that is propagated online. How do you safeguard yourself? This is a question that I've been posing to you since we started the show. How do you safeguard? What kind of measures have you put for yourself at home? When you're scrolling first thing in the morning, how do you know what's true and what's not? Twitter has this feature where before you read, if you try to retweet an article and you haven't read it, they have a very useful note to let you know that would you prefer to read it first before retweeting it? Because that's one way of you spreading misinformation. You're retweeting something that you haven't even checked the facts on yet. So how do you first check? How do you sensitize the people around you? How do you fact check actually? That's going to be the very most important bit of this conversation. I'm not speaking I'm not just the only one here speaking on this. I have guests who are going to help me debunk all of this and also help tackle any questions that you have. I have the Journalist of the Year from USIU Africa in 2023-2024. That is Donna Mora, Youth Against Misinformation. She'll let us know how she's handled that as a journalist and also what you can do yourself. And alongside is Duncan Maigwa, the Strategic Communications Officer, Constitution and Reform Education Consortium, that is CRECO. He'll also here on set. I'm letting them introduce themselves, what roles they have at CRECO, what a Journalist of the Year means, because I'm trying to be that. I'm trying to be the Journalist of the Year. So what does it take to be a Journalist of the Year? What kind of fake news do I have to debunk before I become a Journalist of the Year? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Good morning.
All right, I'll start with Donna. Please have fun with the camera. Let us know of what you do also as a journalist and also at CRECO.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Marara. I am the USIU Africa Journalist of the Year 2023-2024. And he asked about what you have to do to get that title.
Yes, I'm writing notes.
I think that you have to be very active in the journalism department at the School of Communication in USIU Africa. So that means making sure that you're not only a top student, but you are someone who is very active and passionate about journalism and the media. I, for one, am very, very passionate about digital media because that's the future of journalism and the future of the entire world, honestly. So I like to say that I love digital media. So today's conversation is just up my alley. Now for CRECO, I guess right now what I'm doing is a digital democracy ambassador. So I'm speaking about it, and I'm very passionate about learning about misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and all these information disorders that are affecting the digital space at the moment. So today's conversation should be something quite interesting.
All right, it should be indeed. So leave us a comment there. Anything that you like Donna to tackle, we'll be forwarding it to her on real time. Gentleman, Duncan.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm really excited to be here.
Yes.
And most especially because of what we're here to discuss about. My name is Duncan Maigwa. I'm the Strategic Communications Officer at CRECO. CRECO means Constitution and Reform Education Consortium. We are a membership consortium of civil society organizations, actually governance focused civil society organizations. And we majorly deal with issues around human rights, democracy, and governance. And now we are in the current age, we are now talking about e-democracy, that is digital democracy. And that is why we are upfront, as an organization, to push on a proper handling of information, proper use of information online, on the digital platforms. And I'm currently spearheading a project, Vijana Tuchanuke. It's a project that is aimed at enhancing the skills of young people on how to debunk misinformation, disinformation, and fake news. Okay. So I'm really excited about the topic.
Excited too.
We are up to the task.
Nice.
And we are ready to debunk and also to deal with any fake news that may also arise from this
While
show.
we are still on the show.
Still on the show.
So if I say anything that's fake news, just stop me on the track.
We'll flag you right there.
Please. Let's not do that. Guys, let's begin from a personal note, Donna.
Yeah.
Have you interacted with fake news before? And how did you know it's fake news? So that we know from you the safeguard measures that you have and how we can apply them to our other, or to our day-to-day.
I think the one that everybody can, and I love citing this as an example, is during COVID-19. Yeah. That was the biggest, I think, amount of chunks of misinformation were being thrown at us on a daily basis. In fact, even on an hourly basis. I like to say a lot of the time that our mothers turned into doctors. They graduated from the University of WhatsApp. Yeah. So a lot of them were sending us very long chain messages talking about how COVID was a manufactured disease in some lab in Wuhan, China. So, we had a lot of that coming at us, and we didn't know what was real, we didn't know what was fake. The same thing came when the vaccinations were being rolled out. The same issue we were having. People did not know whether or not they should take the vaccination or not. So I think that is probably the best example of misinformation at best. Now, the same thing also applies to like the scholarships thing. I think for us as the youth, we're always trying to look for a way to leave the country, go and get our studies from abroad. Let's look for something, greener pastures for ourselves. And that's what we've been trying to do. But unfortunately, people have used this as a tactic to target these students who are looking for a better future for themselves and throw at them fake scholarships. So people are sending hundreds of thousands of shillings to these fake or bogus sites that claim that they can offer you a scholarship in Finland, in Canada, in the UK, and you think that it's real, but it isn't. So those are some of the misinformation, disinformation things that we can cite. When it comes to what I do, when it comes to the misinformation, to make sure that I'm not being duped or I'm not being lied to, I make sure that I cross-check it on very sites that I believe are authentic. Good examples of them could be like factcheck.org or PolitiFact. Those are some good websites that can be used as fact-checking organizations so that you can just make sure that whatever that I'm hearing, is this true? Is it real? Again, a lot of the time you also have to exercise your own caution as an individual. A lot of the time, as you said, people don't read the full articles that before they even send something out. You read the first headline and then you send it out. Even if whatever is inside is not true, you have no clue about that. So you as an individual, you have to make sure that you sit down with the information, make sure that you synthesize it, evaluate it, understand it, and before you send it around. Right. That'll really, really help you to not be a victim of disinformation or misinformation.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I love that aunties part, especially because we've been used to that happening. You know, forwarded messages, be it just a random video, sometimes even aliens. You know, it's like this is happening. There's this real footage that has happened, a sighting of a spaceship, and it's really hard to convince your mom otherwise, or your aunt, that this isn't real. And I'd like to also know, by the way, as we continue discussing, how do I handle that older generation? How do I tell my father that this isn't actually correct, because when so that's also something around sensitizing the people around us. But let's get a personal note also from Duncan. How have you interacted with false statements and misinformation?
At times when Richard, when we talk about misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and sometimes we encounter these on a day-to-day basis. In fact, if I want to have an example even right now, on Twitter, I'll get it.
Yes.
So and
it's actually faster now to get fake news
than real news.
Yeah, man.
It is. And so sometimes you wonder what example to give, because at some point you feel you feel a fool. You feel a fool sometimes reading through some tweets and sometimes interacting with information. But anyway, but it's always good to say, as a band, sometimes there's always something that will break you down at some point in life, especially when you feel cheated. And I think one that really brought me down was when I was very desperate for a job. And I submitted my documents, personal information, lots of it. It was a whole day of activity. Actually, there's nothing else I was working on apart from that job.
Making
but
that
it was fake, actually.
Oh my God.
And I ended up losing money and the job too, because there wasn't any job at all.
Anyway.
I think that was quite personal. It really brought me so low. And at that point you are calling people, can you assist me with this kind of money? I need some document process somewhere. CGO chapter 6. Very funny things. And sometimes you are even handed over to someone else. I remember, let me give you an example. I remember a lady whom I was forwarded to, and this lady would tell me, lakini Duncan, bona hii document hauna. I don't think it's even, she even makes it harder, tells you that it's even hard to get this document. So why do you want this document at such a speed? And then now she creates a need that you really need to act so fast for you now to get the document. So and it was all fake.
It looks very legit.
Yes, it was all fake, but it seemed legit. And I think the biggest problem was, but I think I fall into it because including their personal emails were organizational. It's just like, for instance, when we talk about KUTV, and I know maybe perhaps we would have, let me just use this, maybe you would have your email as maybe Richard at KUTV.xyz, for instance.
Right.
And then someone comes in with Richard at newkutv.
Yes.
.xyz. So it was very easy for me to fall into that, and also being someone in the communications field and falling into such made me feel so bad. And I actually thought about the very many vulnerable young people out there who are desperate for jobs, only to find that it was fake.
Right.
Yes.
That's
that is my personal experience, I would say.
Right.
That really brought me so low.
How do you do it now in terms of combating and ensuring that you don't show up thinking you're coming to KUTV, alafu ufike hapo upate it's just some guy with his room who invited you to an interview that doesn't exist. What do you do to safeguard yourself?
Okay, definitely. It depends with the context, because Richard, there's quite a lot. Fake news, misinformation, disinformation happens in different contexts. We have it from the political context. We have it from now what we call the social, engagements. We have had celebrities suffer a lot. We have had people suffer, including very senior person, like the fourth president of Kenya.
Yes.
He has never recovered even today.
He's never come back to Twitter.
Yes, and when he came back, he turned off comments. You can never comment. So it happens in different spaces, and every space has its own way to deal with it.
Fact check.
Yes. So for instance, when we talk about if something is happening within the political scene, sometimes you want to see, is this information coming from maybe a particular public entity or a government institution. You'd want to check on their socials. You want to check on their website, for instance. Let me give you an example. Recently, a friend of mine wanted to apply for a job, and it was a job involving the Ministry of I think Public Delivery and something. That means led by this
CS Korea.
CS Korea. So there was this link, and he wanted me to help him apply. So, but when I go to this link, of course, it's a website that I thought is a website that showcases opportunities for young people. And now this website now has another link that is supposed now to take you to the official site of the ministry.
Yes.
Do you know that going to that site, they had an almost 100% copy
of the
actual website. But now I was wondering, okay, definitely looking at the website, but now it was only the landing page and no more information apart from the jobs. And this one was a red flag, and I thought, no, but why would a website for a whole ministry focus only on jobs
on the landing page?
Much.
Yes.
And I went now to their social media platforms on Twitter, and then I saw their website, and then it took me to a website which was almost 100% similar to the fake one. So sometimes you have to take time. That's why we are telling people, even through AskReco, through the Vijana Tuchanuke program, we are telling people, stop, reflect, verify. Don't be in a hurry.
Okay.
Don't be in a hurry.
All right.
And fake news, misinformation is very sensational. It always, most of the time, it has a call to action that is very urgent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. How I do it, I think I'll just say that before we continue with the show. How I do it is, I start in my mind, right? So if I feel a certain type of emotion, I do that first thing you said. I stop first. Yeah. I felt angry or I felt very happy suddenly. No, I'm just scrolling, and then it's some news about how, let's say on politics, because it's what I follow on mostly for the show. It's the government has spent so much on this and that. It's very easy to get, angered by that quickly. Could be, yeah. So the first thing I do is stop, as you said, think about it. If this thing is affecting my moods in one way or another, I have to do fact checking before I retweet it, or before I share it, or before I come and talk about it here on the show, because it's really easy. And I want to throw us in the deep end on that, especially with journalism. Now, everyone on the digital space want to be the first to report. Yeah. Actually, almost everyone wants to be a journalist now on the digital front. The helicopter crash has happened. You have to be the first one to get the most retweets out of it. You want to be the top when they search that news later. It's not so much about you letting people know about this, rather than you being first to report it. But then now, one thing that has developed lately is that even media houses, I'm going to put us on the spot here, that you might find it's also misinformation somehow. They want to be first to report. So you're seeing it's an official account, official Twitter account of XTV, and they've already posted it, so you don't check anything, you don't cross-check anywhere. So how do we do that? How do we still ensure that people are fact-checking even the traditional media, which is slowly also getting lost in that noise?
For one, I'd like to say that traditional media is now being relegated to the position of a place where we just go to verify information. So we get the news first breaks on digital media, and then we rush to TV just to see, is this real? What I've seen here, is it for real? So that's what we use TV and radio and all these other traditional media outlets for. Now, you've mentioned the fact that everybody's rushing to be the first to report the story, and that also falls on media houses as well. Yes, that is very true, and media houses themselves have been guilty of breaking even misinformation. Look at the Davido one with K24 very recently. That's a perfect example of misinformation. They said it was an April Fool's Day prank, but going out and saying that someone has 18 million shillings worth of cocaine
Yes.
in their helicopter is crazy.
Yes.
And when it's not true. So I think, again, we have to do better also as traditional media news outlets when we're doing our stuff, you know.
Yeah.
We can't just behave like ordinary citizen journalists. Now, on the point of citizen journalism and people going out on social media and breaking out news stories, I think that it's very important that we as a society also understand that, okay, maybe we're not consuming news the way that we used to, you know, that the times have changed.
Yeah.
So now, of course, we're going to pick up our phones, record something, and then post it. But let's be also honest when we're posting the things that we are posting. Can we make sure that people are ethical and are abiding by journalistic standards when they're posting these things? Which is a stretch, yes, but if you're going to engage in citizen journalism, you'd at least hope that someone would employ those standards when they are posting, when they are sharing, and even when they are disseminating information on their various platforms. Because right now we are in a space where there's a lot of user-generated content. So people are themselves picking up their camera and recording their opinions, and be it not, a lot of the time, some influencers, you'll take their opinion as fact. Whether you like it. So you have to be cognizant of the power that you as an individual possess once you become or take on that role of citizen journalist, and make sure that you're executing that role to the capacity that it deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And also it's getting harder as well now with citizen journalism and blue check marks happening all across social media. Before then, it was anyone with a blue check mark is someone you don't even have to fact check.
Verified.
But now you can buy it. And
Exactly.
I'm sure there's a large chunk of the population who still trust that blue check mark.
Yeah.
So as long as someone with a a verified account says something, I take it as gospel.
Yeah.
Which means you haven't kept up with the trends in the digital space as well, which I'm sure is part of what is a way to mitigate against fake news and misinformation.
Again, on that same point, there was a study that was done by Reuters Institute of Journalism, and the study revealed that about 75% of Kenyans are not able to distinguish between whether news is fake or if it's real. Now, those are alarming numbers. So a lot of people are not. See, you can be duped.
You
Fake
said 75%.
jobs. 75%.
So it's 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
In this room, we're about how many people here?
Yeah.
10 or so.
So
a lot of people here who fall in that category.
people are not going to know whether it's real, and those are very scary. So that means that people are very easily going to be lied to. They're going to be disinformed, and they'll take that stuff as the truth.
Yeah.
So we have to do something has to be done.
How do we deal with our aunties while we are still there? How do you deal with my mother who sends me a message and tells me don't step out of the house? Today there are Illuminati people in Kenya moving. What do I do about that?
I think with that, it's a very slow but sure process.
Okay.
For people to accept change, it takes time. And it's not something that you can just wake up one day and say, nah, don't listen to this and this. It's very, very steady. You have to slowly start informing them about places where they can, first of all, really, 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 I hope that you encourage them to read the entirety of the articles that they're sending out before they start. Then it's also good to just cross-check, see if any other news outlets have posted that same information. If not, there's something probably wrong with what it is that you're reading. Again, I'd also like to say that, yes, there's that, the elder, junior respect that you have to have when so don't come across as like abrasive when you're presenting this information. Let them know that you, first of all, do your due diligence and check whether that stuff is correct. If not, send them the correct. A lot of the time what I do is just send the correct link and just be like, no, this is a lie.
Look at this as well.
Look at this as well. Because sometimes I can understand it, because right now it's becoming very sophisticated, the amount of disinformation that's being propagated on social media. For instance, now we have deep fakes. So we have AI generated videos of you, Richard, saying stuff that you never said.
But it looks like me.
But it looks like you. And it's your mouth moving. But it's very, very scary. So I can understand why our aunties are having a bit of a hard time in that space. But I think if you approach it with the grace that's needed and tell them about the fact-checking organizations and do even your own digital verification, I think we'll be on a good path.
Okay. Duncan, in your experience, I see here first that CRECO, as you said, of course, people-centered governance, and especially to ensure that you're empowering citizens, the disadvantaged groups, marginalized, who the impact you can let us know of as well. Maybe we can begin there. How does fake news disproportionately affect marginalized communities? And maybe an example of where this has led to like real world harm from fake news online or elsewhere, and then you can see it manifest.
All right, maybe before I get to that, let me just chime in on something that Donna is addressing here. The whole issue of the media houses now, the traditional media that we have. I think most of it is misinformation, unlike disinformation for them. Because sometimes, most of the time, we find media wants to be sensational at some point. And so what happens, they would they would actually even post something with some headline that really doesn't match. I mean, it may mislead people. I think that it's misleading.
Okay.
It's misleading information.
It could be the information, but then with some sensational.
Yes. Yeah. As a journalist, you know very well there is what we call the agenda setting theory. No, the framing theory. The framing. There is how media would frame something so that it is
get reactions.
Yes, it is interpreted as something else. And I think Kenyan media is growing. We can say we are still developing, and this is one of the challenges that we have had. But now coming to what you're saying, I think it's important for us to understand the definitions when you talk about now misinformation. And we talk about disinformation. Misinformation is unintended. Disinformation is intended. Someone brings in false information intentionally. And then now we have the misinformation. So, but personally, I have seen now bridging the gap now between the urban population, and now going to the marginalized. There is a very huge gap. Being part of a church group, I remember recently there was some disinformation around. That there were snakes due to the flooding, there were snakes that had, I think, left where in Nairobi, and
they are heading
a very interesting, yes, a very interesting story, and somehow it landed in our church group, WhatsApp group, and. Okay, the good thing is, let me say this on a very light note, it brings our parents to a point whereby they pray a lot. But now you see they are praying without proper information.
They are praying for
they would pray for their sons, in Nairobi, as we are, to be safe from the snakes. And I actually saw the comments. Oh, God help us. God help your people. This is now what we have. And now sometimes that could be okay. It's something around our social, the things we interact with daily. But do you know why we have even violence when it comes to politics in Kenya is a very emotive issue. And you can imagine when for instance in the last year, the last election, and actually CRECO published a document which we call 295 days. It's a vignette on political misinformation and disinformation, electoral misinformation and disinformation. And we were checking on we were actually tracking the occurrences of misinformation and disinformation within the whole electoral process. And we actually did a vignette on the same. So I know our viewers can check on our website at grecokenya.org. It's on our resources tab. So you realize when we are in such a period, and we have these masterminds of controversies, conspiracies, and all that, propagating such disinformation. You see how it sometimes, and that's why you see when it comes to politics, it doesn't when political violence in Kenya, it doesn't only happen in the urban areas, even in the rural areas, because it's something that really affects. So there is now the bridging the gap. That is, someone said when, for instance, Richard, I published something forth about you. They usually say, we always encourage people that don't respond to that information. What you're supposed to do is post the correct information. to counter that. So when you are faced by false information, you counter with correct information. That's why we are actually, as CRECO, and also having ambassadors like Donna in place on board, we are trying to advocate for young people to become ambassadors of correct information.
Okay.
It's an issue that requires our concerted efforts. I mean, you have a responsibility as a young person to stop, reflect, and verify, so that when you see something that's been posted, and you know very well this one is moving in circles within the marginalized communities and all that, and even specifically now our parents who are all from a whole different generation, are we ready to make sure that before it goes too far, we post the correct information to them? I mean, the best way to deal with it, the best way to deal
the poison.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So this. I mean, fake news doesn't have any other solution.
Yeah.
It's just you always fight fake news with correct information, and we all need to become ambassadors as young people.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Depending from wherever you stand. Yes.
What is the role of digital literacy in all this? How do we ensure that digital literacy for the youth is also, as you said, bridging that gap between the urban and the marginalized communities? What kind of digital literacy efforts can we do in terms of anti-misinformation?
Yes, you realize something, Richard, that when we talk about young people, even the people who are we can say very educated, in fact, someone said that the world is also waiting to see what is the long-term effect of this digitization, because it's something, and that's why even when we say that the youth are the digital natives, the current generation, we are the digital natives. We are the people who have first interacted with this whole wave of digitization.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what is the long-term effect of this.
Even the leaders of these AI companies themselves say, they are waiting to see what happens. Yeah.
Because it has revolutionized so much, including how we study, how we do things, and all that. I mean, you even find phones that have what we call crying baby detector.
Yeah.
So if a baby cries, it can call a particular number. So you have your baby sleep, leave your phone there, and have that phone monitor. If the baby cries, then it will call, or it makes something to another number. So we are yet to understand that. But when now we talk about digital literacy, this is when we bring young people, and thanks to such programs as CRECO is doing, bringing young people on board and telling them, you know what, this is information. We are in a digital age. How do you interact with information?
Okay.
But let me say something, Richard. When we talk about curbing misinformation and disinformation, it's something that every young person listening to us has to be very intentional about.
Okay.
Because it might be you, or it might be someone close to you, or even someone. I mean, it's something you need to be very intentional.
Not
so when you talk
passive about it, only when it affects you. Or something.
So we have to be very intentional as young people into getting and enrolling into programs that help us grow our digital literacy. Is it about fact checking? Is it about debunking fake news? Is it about learning about the consequences of fake news? And because most of us don't like to read, it's up to us to be very intentional about reading these things. I know they nowadays it's about Generation Z every now and then, but we have to read. We have to enroll into programs. We have to learn what are these fact-checking tools. So it's about intention.
Okay.
It's about intention. That's why even when we address this whole issue, we are seeking to. It's not much of quantitative, but qualitative. A change of mind. A change of mind whereby young people realize that it's my responsibility to learn how to interact with digital platforms.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be really ironical where the digital natives are the ones most affected by these platforms. I mean, as you mentioned, an example of you clicking on a link, applying for a job, and I'm sure a bunch of people also do not even verify the details of the link itself. I have been in situations where the biggest fact checking someone gives to me is, I saw it on a TikTok. This TikTok said you shouldn't. This TikTok said you shouldn't drink so much water. I'm like, who is that? Who is that TikTok person? Yeah, so that is also quite ironical, but as you said, it's important to be very intentional about it.
Yes.
Not just passively interacting, saying, I'm Gen Z, mimi ndio mtu wa digital, nini. And then, as you said, sometimes even when a website is mirroring another website, what they're collecting really is personal information. Maybe your banking details, your passwords, and whatnot. Right, now, just a final one from you, which is a tricky one. Given sometimes people who are intentionally spreading fake information are our politicians or like our leaders, are like the president who would go somewhere and say the dollar to the shilling is at 100 shillings, and then people would clap because they are in a rural area, maybe they do not have that kind of information. What do I do about those people? Or what should those people do? Because that's someone you can't convince otherwise, because they know the president is the truth. What does Richard know? I mean, he's not the president. So how do I convince these people to also fact check the president, to fact check our leaders in a way that we're not just giving others a pass, including pastors. Yeah, I'm being informed by my producer that including pastors, you're in church and he preaches the truth from the Bible, but then adds in a bit of extra information that isn't true. So what do we do with those figures of authority, actually? Maybe if I can group them as that.
Richard, I think one of the biggest problems that we have had, because now you touched on a very, 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 very close matter to Kreco, governance. What happens with what has been the biggest problem, especially in our country, Kenya, is sycophancy. And sometimes sycophancy, we have seen something happened, something that has happened even recently. A very popular blogger being turned real quick. We can't believe. Was a very such an attacker to the government. I mean, and I know even we as civil society organizations, at some point you look at some of these people and you feel these are the people who are actually fighting for human rights. For proper governance. As Kreco, we always talk about pro-people governance. That is always what we keep pushing for. And sycophancy is so bad because what it does is that it makes the governance to be sort of materialistic. Sometimes it's about money, it's about what you get from it, to even spread fake news. We have seen the government, in the previous government, tried to have there's something we are calling GOK delivers. Try and show the projects they've been, because sometimes there's an issue around, this government is doing nothing. So for Kenya Kwanza government, we are still
no, they have HNIB.
HNIB. All right. Don't go there. Don't go there.
All right.
So, but now this one brings in two issues. Even as we talk about that, one, it brings the idea what we call digital governance, and now what we call online activism. And this is what we are calling our young people into. When we talk about political misinformation, disinformation, we are calling young people into online activism. So when I say that is, do we hold these leaders accountable? But anyway, we have seen these recently. We find, for instance, let me just give an example because it's a matter of national importance.
Yes. Name names.
We
you have to.
We have had clips recently of the president saying these people don't know the kind of damage that they are doing, but by daily taxes, adding taxes to Kenyans on a daily basis. That was during the campaign trails and all that. That's what he said. So, but there's a change of tune. Yes, he says everyone has to pay taxes, and quite a lot is happening. So, and you find now people bringing up these clips and calling them out. This is what you said before. This is what you said before. This is now what you are saying. So we want to know What is your stand? So, and now when we talk about digital governance, is when now we come out as young people and call our leaders to order and tell them, be responsible, keep your word. Keep your word. Don't tell us that this is what the government is doing and it's exactly something different. So we see an issue of maybe, for instance, the dollar and all that. And when you talk to people within the financial, the whole sector, they will tell you a different perspective around why the dollar is behaving the way it's behaving. So that's why I mentioned Richard, and I keep mentioning the same. Let me just mention something, but I know we'll get there. When we talk about some of the legislations that exist, Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act and all that, there's something they don't address. You realize that it may not address how specifically to deal with misinformation, disinformation, and fake news. I mean, it's just a punishment. It's just a document to punish people, offenders. For instance, offenders. You read section 22 on publication of false news, false information, and all that. Now it will talk about a fine and also an imprisonment of this, but it really doesn't address me as Duncan seated in my house. And I find that, the government will deal with this information so long as it's maybe a threat to national security and all that. But what about me when it is a threat to my reputation, when it is a threat to my, to my even safety, to my career? How do I deal with that? Do I still go again to section 22? No. And that is why now we are talking, even as Greco, and through this the Vijana Tuchanuke program, we are talking about self-regulation. Self-regulation. That's the key. Self-regulation. That's why we are calling people to be intentional again on about curbing misinformation and disinformation. Yes.
Let me come to Donna. Ninaambiwa tutaongea hapa hadi 12. So let me try and also get everything in order so we tackle as much as possible in the shortest time possible. It's 9 in the morning, so we have around 3 minutes max for us to finish this conversation. Donna, on a personal level, as you said, unajua reputation yangu is also a very important thing. Other than me following that piece of information with the actual information. So they said I divorced my wife last week, but I didn't. Or there's a video of me fighting somewhere, but then it isn't me. Apart from maybe me coming to defend myself, and sometimes it is counterintuitive. I'll go defend myself kwa ona sasa najitetea sasa hivi ndo anaweza ongea hiyo time hapo ongea. Apart from that, and maybe the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act, there are other ways I can safeguard myself from the effects. Some even pornography. There's the revenge porn. Revenge porn. Which is also a crime on its own, and also spread of information that shouldn't be there in the public domain. How do I deal with these things to have peace of mind such that I'm not just always worried notification ikitokea ni shapani? There's actually this one time I woke up to a bunch of notifications, and given what I know about the time that you trend, most likely the first time it's something really bad. So I was in a panic mode, only to find there was it wasn't that bad. How do I ensure I have a peace of mind?
I think the first thing when you are the victim of disinformation is for you to not react immediately. A lot of the time people start with the emotions take center stage, and then you don't act rationally. What you do is, oh no, I didn't say that, and then you look even more guilty, you know. So I think the first thing that you need to do, which Greco also really advises, is for you to stop just for a second. Think about it. Like, internalize this information. You understand, where has it come from? Where do you think, who do you think will be most affected by this piece of information? Of course, after yourself, there are other people who look up to you and other people who are literally depending on you. So look at those people who are going to be affected by this information. Then once you've done that, now you can come up with a strategic plan on how to respond to this attack. Sometimes some of them don't even need responses. You know what I mean? Someone is slandered. It doesn't really, the campaign is not doing too much. Just there's no need for you to full throttle, guns blazing type thing. Sometimes they don't need a response. But for other ones, like there's some really serious smear campaigns that happen sometimes at USIU during political season. This season. Okay. You guys ready for the V8s? Anyway, Yeah, so those ones need responses.
Okay.
And sometimes you can't respond on your own. You'll need a whole team to back you for that one. You'll need a whole PR campaign team and whatnot. People who can actually genuinely advise you on what to do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a video in itself does not suffice. Like you coming out to the public saying, guys, that's not me. But a lot of the time that also helps clear the air. That was not me. I wasn't even there at that time. That sort of thing. I think that can also help. But again, when it comes to this whole misinformation, disinformation thing, again, it's very important that us as the youth, when we're absorbing this information that we're getting on, we become digital media literate. That's the thing. So what we need to be doing is he said, talking about join workshops and educate ourselves on this specific matter. And that's what KRECO is doing right now. There's a digital fellowship that they're holding for the youth, where they're taking on people from students from across the country, and they're bringing them there to educate us, to sensitize us on this specific matter, disinformation, misinformation, all of that stuff. So if you're part of that and you want to stop getting duped, join us. Apply today.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to read a few comments here, and then I'll come back to Duncan first to let us know how people can use what we already have in terms of the Cybercrimes Act of 2018 and the Election Offences Act. I mean, they might be lacking. They have maybe limitations here and there, but also within what is already available, how can we use that as we wait on to leveraging more? And then I think I'll get back to you as well to let us know of other fact-checking, maybe just a reminder as well on where people can go fact-check when they see a bit of information. I also provide a few of those places where you can reverse check the image. You find an image on Twitter, there's places you can actually go and they let you know of the original source of that piece of information you've received, whether it's a video or an image, and then maybe you can close it up with trends that you see in the future in terms of that information dissemination and how we can prepare ourselves for the future. AI, this year at the very end, OpenAI is promising to come out with a very interesting tool called Sora. Those who have interacted with it so far can tell you you will completely not tell it isn't AI generated. Just a short prompt, so fast. And that's like the first generation of this tool, which means once it's developed a bit more, it's going to be even harder in 5 years time when we're going to, or in a few years time, or in an election period. It's going to be really difficult to tell what's real and what's not. So you can give us that information. But in the meantime, let's see who is tuning into the show and what they're saying about you guys, or if they have any comments that we can take a note of. Byron Onduru, who is the CEO of Dulo Attires, amesema, you're looking great, bro. Thanks for trusting our work. Yes, thank you for trusting me with your work as well. You're meant for the screens. Asante sana. Dan Njenga anasema Donna, and then that's it.
Thank you.
That's it. Dan Njenga, asante for tuning into the show. Let us know where you're tuning into from. Gathoni Ngari, the show is lit with 2 fire emojis. I'm loving it. Thank you very much, Gathoni. Cynthia Auma, good morning from this end. So talented. Keep it burning. Thanks for the good teachings. That's from our guests. Jimmy Wairimu, the show is lit. Justin Akinyi, looking good as always. Richard, good topic today. Asante sana, Justin. Dan Njenga, again, I'm proud of you. Donna. Margaret Wanjiru, Duncan, representing. Fred Blessed, proud, saying Mr. Duncan, wisdom always flowing. Great information at Duncan. This is from Tabitha Mathu. Asante sana for guys who are continue to check in on the live stream. Tuambie pia, where you're watching from. As we close up, guys, oh wow, it's 9:07 in the morning. Let's just handle that those 2 acts, and then you tell us of the sides of fact checking. Yeah, let's begin with you, Duncan.
All right, so going through for instance, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act of 2018, it talks about a person who intentionally publishes false information, but just reading it, but paraphrasing it, misleading or fictitious data, or misinforms with the intent that the data be considered or acted upon as authentic. which actually is what they always do. But of course, in section 22(2), it says that pursuant to Article 24 of the Constitution, that talks about the limitation of rights and fundamental freedoms. The freedom of expression under Article 33 of the Constitution shall be limited in respect to the intentional publication of false, misleading, or fictitious data or misinformation that is likely, one, to propagate or incite persons to violence, constitutes hate speech, and or advocates hatred, or negatively affects the rights or reputations of others.
Okay.
So in as much as Article 33 of the Constitution talks about the freedom of expression, definitely there is a limitation to that, to this right. And the limitation is, in as much as you are exercising your freedom of expression, there is the aspect of accountability. And this is what we want to see, even as we talk about when we talk about digital democracy anyway, as a whole. We want to see accountability, because when we talk about the digital democracy, talking about maybe the future, for instance, it's very likely that these campaigns that we have people on top of cars and all that might come to an end.
They'll happen on top of accounts.
They'll be happening on pinned tweets and
and Insta stories.
And so we're talking about accountability, because what has happened, let us be honest, it's always good to have an honest conversation when we talk about matters governance, and specifically digital governance. In Kenya, people always have a way of escaping the law, especially when you are in positions of leadership. And I remember one instance. Let me give an example. One instance, the former president, the fourth president, I will do that real quick. The former president, there was a time they had some sort of misunderstanding and some conflict with one member of parliament, because he had been called some names.
You
remember?
Yes, I remember.
So, but going back to the clip, you realize this gentleman was saying, nimesema yeye ni... He would say.
He didn't say.
And then the public says, you can't sue the mob. You can't sue the mob. And so when they go to court and all that, it's when it's a court session and all that.
Like I didn't say anything.
Yes, I didn't say anything. You find lawyers poking holes into the law. And you find them also, looking for some of the things that have not been addressed.
So that's how it falls short.
Yes.
Okay, I see it.
That's how it falls short. And also now, again, it does not really deal with misinformation and disinformation at the level of for instance, when you talk about the marginalized communities, if, for instance, I spoil the reputation of someone, I take the reputation of someone back in my village, there's nothing much they can do apart from maybe waiting for me somewhere at the corner and they deal with me.
and deal with you
and deal with me. But the harm that I have caused is not at the street, at that corner. The harm is on the digital space.
Yes.
And that is why we find nowadays, I can even pick something from you, make it a meme and misuse it. We have had people using clips into their DJ drops and all that. Yeah, sometimes it wasn't fun. Maybe someone was a victim somewhere, they said a word. I remember during Kibaki time, and there was floods.
There was this lady,
who was saying,
Serikali saidia.
And it was used in it was even made, a bit was made out of it. And the lady was really, was a victim. She was a victim. She was suffering. So how do you deal with that? It's not addressed in the Act. It's not.
So there's need for more to be done.
Yes, there's need for more. And that is why before that, because we know sometimes having some of these things amended, and it's a whole process. That's why we come in as Greco to tell people there's need for self-regulation in the meantime.
All right.
Yes.
Asante sana. I'd like you to take like 10 or 20 seconds to talk about this Digital Democracy Fellowship. I'm sure this is going to be a very good one for the youth, also to get into digital democracy and know how can they apply, and everything that is all around there, and then you can give us your final remark generally on misinformation, disinformation, and fake news. Yes.
All right. So we have called young people passionate young people. Actually, that's what we are saying passionate young people, because our intention is to get ambassadors who are going to help us deal with this menace, because it's a menace.
Yeah.
So calling up journalists who are working around the digital space, activists. We know we have activists who have, I mean, some of them are even faceless, but we know they speak. They speak online.
Yeah.
We also calling upon content creators and also students, because we believe students, these people we are targeting are the greatest propagators of this information.
Okay.
So we are calling upon them to join the Digital Democracy Fellowship. We are calling it DDF. That's how we are calling it. The Digital Democracy Fellowship is a program that is going for 6 months with trainings and actually culminating with an online, with a community project that you're supposed to do.
Okay.
And it will be a very, very good opportunity for everyone who is passionate about digital democracy to come in and also be a young ambassador for misinformation. To counter misinformation and disinformation.
Okay.
So the advertisement is out. Okay. And
where can they apply?
It's on our website.
Okay.
When you go to our website, opportunities tab, you find that krekokenya.org. So for the avoidance of doubt, so that nobody
fake news.
is duped. Nobody is duped with some kind of another fellowship
website.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
Please make sure you go to our socials at Kreko Kenya on X, Kreko Kenya on Facebook, also on Instagram at Kreko_Kenya. You are able to go and find this advertisement there.
Okay.
Go to our website, apply, and if you qualify, you get yourself into that point where you join the fellowship.
All right.
And it's very sustainable. Moving on, it's cohort 1 actually.
Okay.
So we are
expecting to do some more after.
Yes, it's gloves off.
Okay.
We are ready to fight misinformation and disinformation.
Okay, asante sana.
Thank you so much.
Time is not on our side at all. Thank you very much, Duncan Maigwa, the Strategic Communications Officer at Constitution and Reform Education Consortium. As Donna also handles that sites where you can check, information, fact check. Kreko is one of them. Go to Kreko. If you feel like you didn't really get that information, email them. Or Lize, is this real or not? Yeah. I'm sure they'll definitely help you. But most importantly, check out that opportunities tab at Kreko Kenya.org, the opportunities tab there. You'll find that Digital Democracy Fellowship and do the application. Real quick.
About the site? Okay.
Yes.
You can use BBC Reality Check. It's a team of dedicated guys that are trying to combat misinformation. So they really debunk things. So a lot of the time they have really good audience engagement with people on social media. So they will literally, if you ask a question, they will respond to you in the comment section. Again, you can use factcheck.org. They're also a really good group. If you want to check if whatever it is that you are feeling is a bit off, you can check it on that website. And then there's PolitiFact. Now that one is strictly politics. So just check stuff there. If you're hearing that Ruto is in your area and he's on a state visit, you can find out there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's also Reuters Fact Check, which is by Reuters we know all the news agency that is international. So you can check that, especially for information that's coming outside of the of this republic. Just as we say goodbye, anyone you'd like to say goodbye to, and then we can or any shout outs to Kreko.
Yeah.
If I take the break.
Yes. Okay, you go first.
Yeah.
You go first.
Hi mom, hi dad, hi Dan.
All right. Okay, thank you very much.
Let me also acknowledge my executive director, Mr. Joshua Changwony, who has been an inspiration to Kreko and always encouraging us to keep on pushing for pro-people governance. And pro-people governance is also engaging people into proper proper interaction with information.
Okay.
And also to appreciate the Embassy of Finland, which is also playing a very pivotal role in the project Vijana Tuchanuke. And yes, we are set. And I know this is a conversation we cannot exhaust today.
We can't.
Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate you for also hosting us.
Yes, thank you for coming through. I'm hoping we can continue this conversation, of course. Right. With more people from Kreko. Yeah. All right, asante sana. That is Donna, the USIU Africa Journalist of the Year, and also Duncan Maigwa, Strategic Communications Officer at CRECO, Constitution and Reform Education Consortium. We're going to handle more news coming up in the newspaper review section with Nick Mwadime Mwangi and Fendo Godwin. They're here also to handle what kind of information we are receiving from our leaders, especially in the political space. That's the discourse that is coming up. But if you have any more questions from what we just discussed, please continue forwarding them. We are still in touch. We'll handle it even off air. Just to say a few comments before we go for that break. Brian Sengeli amesema great discussions, chaps. Asante sana Brian. Rose Morara, is that your sister?
That's my mom.
Oh, that's your mom. Oh, hi, mom.
Hi, mom.
Very educative information for my generation. Duncan featuring Donna. Yeah. The collab. Keep the fire burning. Peter Gitu anasema the show is much interesting. Edgar Ndege anasema pertinent topic on the table. Edgar Ndege. Daktari, asante for tuning into the show. Post-medical interns, KE.
Yay, okay.
Professor George Morara Ogendi. That's your dad?
That's my dad.
Oh my God. When I grow up, I want to be your parents. Misinformation and disinformation is a very timely and relevant topic affecting our country. The KU host and the guest team has done a fantastic job. Asante sana. And keep it up. Donna, Richard, and Duncan. Asante sana. I'll be fact-checking those accounts.
Thanks, Dad.
So it's actually your dad. Thank you guys for creating time for us here.
Thank you.
Biashara Tuesday. Thank you as well. Biashara Tuesday takes a very short break. I'll be back with the guests that I said, so don't go too far. Gazeti ni 100 saizi. I told you to get it before it goes up, but yeah, anyway, we'll handle it. Don't go too far.